Right, so I'm assuming I'm online. I've tried to make things better. But if someone can let me know if we are online, that would be great. Is my video and audio visible? I am not yet sure. Let's see. Let's see. Yeah, feels like I'm online now. Okay, that's great. That's great. Yep. Seems all good. All good. Yeah, guys, if you can just type something in the chat. Please let me know about audio and video quality. If video is a little bit blurry, that's fine, but let me know about the audio. I've tried to work a lot on audio. Right. So we see Petrov happening in front of us. Nakamura against Jan Nepomniachtchi. We got this Petrov line with c4, right? Uh, if we go back, e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6. We saw this one of the previous rounds as well. And I gave some insight that this is one of my favorite lines. Pragananda played this against Nepomniachtchi, right? We had this sort of situation where I was telling you guys that bishop f5 is the only way to play. Otherwise, if you play bishop g4, I told that rook b1 can be a little bit annoying, and bishop f5 stops rook b1. I mean, that was one insight which I gave some time ago in one of the previous rounds. So yeah, well, that's that. But let's see what happens here. We have castle c4 c6, and Nakamura opts for this rook e1 line. I am not very familiar with this one because I have always played knight c3 in this position, but I know it exists. Now, oh no, actually, I am a little bit familiar. I think bishop f5, queen b3 is something I've seen played by Rapport, I think. Bishop f5 is queen b3 the move? Yes, queen b3 is the move. I've seen this one before, and I think even Nepomniachtchi has played this as black. So Nakamura's definitely done some good preparation here. We'll figure out what it is. The bishop f5 played by Nakamura. Let me just adjust my mic a little bit. Yeah, bishop f5, queen b3, and we see queen d7. I'm pretty sure Nepomniachtchi has played this before, so nothing surprising there. I'm curious to see what Nakamura has come up with in his preparation. Yeah, anything in the chat? No. Yeah. Yeah, guys, yeah, I mean, if you can write chat, if you can write hi in the chat, that would be nice because I tried to make a better layout and try to improve audio and video quality. So if everything is up to the mark, let me know. Queen d7 by Nakamura, and not Nakamura, but Nepomniachtchi, and we are yet to see Nakamura's reply. Oh, some moves have been played. Bishop c7. Uh, Engine says knight c3 was the best move, but I think c5 is Nakamura's preparation. And what are the differences, right? So let's say knight c3, bishop f5, queen f5, bc3, b6 is the main line. I think this is what Nepomniachtchi has played before. And I don't think Nakamura thought there was something special here. So I think when I analyze knight h4 was the best move, but I guess Nepomniachtchi knows this very well. So Nakamura has come up with c5. This is his new idea, I think. Bishop c7, good move by Nepomniachtchi. And g3 by Nakamura. So this is this new idea which he's trying to play. Something connected with knight h4. We'll have to figure out the subtleties ourselves. But that's what I can tell right now. Yeah, that's what I can tell right now. Something connected with knight h4. Question is, why could you not go knight h4 directly? It turns out that there is bishop e6 and knight h4 doesn't make that much sense back again. Indian thinks you have to play knight f3 back again. But what difference does g3 make? Let's say there is rook e8, knight h4, bishop e6, and you actually have bishop takes e4 since what? This is Indian gives this weird line. Oh, you've prevented bishop takes h2. Okay, if the same line was played and the pawn was not on g3, bishop takes h2 would be loss of the queen. Okay, so not only is this connected with knight h4, this is also connected with getting queen takes b7 in. So let's see what Nepomniachtchi replies with. Yeah, this is going to be interesting. Some good preparation by Nakamura for sure. For sure. Hey, yeah, nice. Let's move on to one of the other games. What do we have? Let's see. Let's see someone else. Games. Why can I not go to other games? Let's go to Fabiano Caruana versus Pragyananda. Okay, we've got some advanced French defense in the FIDE candidates. That's not something I would be expecting. Well, I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't think French is a great opening, but I think advanced is the most comfortable variation for black. But I'm sure that Fabiano has done some work here. Bishop d7, b4. I don't play this with queen b6. I play it with bishop d7. And the point was that I would play this with knight e7 here directly. Yeah, knight e7, of course. And here I have knight g6 attacking the pawn and playing bishop c5. Two ideas possible here, so you can't really take. And let's say if you castle, I was playing knight f5 back in my day. And I was not playing it with queen b6 because after Fabiano's idea, a3, bishop d7, b4, I was not really comfortable having my queen on b6. I didn't think it belonged there. Of course, theory has proven it's all fine and all, but principally speaking, I don't like my queen on b6. So I was not playing it with queen b6. I was playing it with bishop d7 only. I was keeping my queen on d8. So that's my 2 cents on this. But let me know if you have any other thoughts for sure. Any other insights from anyone? No, nothing in the chat so far. That's okay. I've got this situation. Knight f3, queen b6, a3. A3 is the move. Yeah. Yeah, the idea is to go b4. I think c4 is a move, which is a possibility. I think Arjun Ergasi has played this before. c4. Interesting move. You stop bishop d3 and you kind of say that you want to castle long and then you can start attacking on this side of the board. It's a plan which has been seen from time to time. But Pragyananda does not opt for this. So, like that position I'm talking about goes something like this: Bishop d7, short castle, and I think long castle has been seen here before. Knight d2, knight a5, this sort of situation. Now Black is free to attack on the queen side. He'll develop his pieces first, I think, but eventually he is free to attack there. And of course, White will have these rook b1, b4 ideas. So it's not like it's one-sided play, but I'm just showing one of the plans. Knight f3, queen b6, a3, bishop d7, b4, cd, cd. This is also one of the main lines. Rook c8, bishop b2. I've also seen bishop e3. I think Hare Krishna has played bishop e3 before, Hare Krishna Pentala. Bishop b2 is also a possibility. It's a matter of taste where you want to put the bishop b2 or e3. So I think I think I had one game where I played as black and my opponent played bishop e3. I went on to lose that game. Ever since then, I had not been putting my queen on b6. So bishop b2, knight e7, this is all playable. And we are waiting for Fabiano's response. Pragyananda is clearly in prep. So it's Fabiano who has to decide where to put his pieces. An idea, a simple idea is knight c3 and knight a4. That's a very standard idea. But I'm wondering if Fabiano's thinking about something else. Is he thinking about something like bishop d3, knight f5, bishop takes f5? Usually I do not recommend that capture, but is it playable? Traditionally, it's not. Traditionally, the problem that here takes, knight c3, bishop e6 was considered to be fine for black. Injun is debating whether white has a slight plus or not, but traditionally this sort of blockade was considered to be fine. Have there been developments? I don't know. But yeah, a computer says it's playable. Knight e2, knight f4 is always an idea. Cannot be too bad for black. White would love to have these pair of bishops off the board. If you have these pair of bishops off the board, you essentially get rid of your bad. In which case, black only has the bad bishop, some weak pawns on d5 and f5, which makes things quite easy to play for white. But how to get these bishops traded, that's a different question entirely. Nothing in the chat so far. The stream is going on, right? Yeah, okay. Oh, hi, awesome stream. Keep it up. Thank you very much, Insomniac. Thank you very much. That really made my day. Can you just confirm if the audio and video quality is good? That would be really appreciated. Insomniac. Nice. Nice to hear that, mate. Thank you very much for the support. Really, really pleased to see people joining in. Really pleased. So knight c, and we have knight a5. Was that played, or am I just making moves myself? Seems like knight c3, knight a5 has been played. Let me go back to some other game and come back to this one so that I can check. So let's say we go back to Nakamura's and Pragyananda's. Yeah, okay, this has been played. So knight c3, knight a5. Pragyananda's clearly in prep. Knight a5 is not a move you play without preparation. You can find it without preparation technically, but Pragyananda played this way too quickly for it to be not in preparation. That's what I think. Okay, it's fine. Thank you for letting me know. Thank you very much. Is there any specific game you want me to cover? Insomniac or Isomaniac? How do I pronounce that? Isomaniac. 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 Yeah. Any other games you want me to cover? But yeah, I'll just give some thoughts on this one. Knight a5. And yeah, so the idea is to go knight c4, of course, right? You want to get rid of white's strongest piece. And well, the question here is, can we take? That would be dangerous because queen takes b2, the knight on c3 is in some trouble. And if you move the knight, then the rook has a clear open path. I would not take, so I have to look for better options. Knight c4 is coming. What can I do? So in a practical game, I would be looking at my options. Some candidate moves, I would be looking at our knight a4, attacking his queen. It's a forcing moves. Also, I have to look at captures, ba5, a capture like that, knight d5, a capture like that, although that's terrible. But you miss moves if you don't take into account all checks, captures, and other forcing moves. So those are a few things I would be looking at. Knight a4 is one move, ba5, bishop d3 potentially, and I have to make a decision which one's best. Now, intuitively, knight a4 looks good to me because I'm kicking this queen out, I'm trying to put pressure on the knight. I'll try to make this one work during the game. If it doesn't work, I'll have to settle with something like bishop d3. Now, Injin thinks bishop d3 is actually playable, which is a little bit of a surprise. I would have thought black's position is fine after knight c4. And bishop c1, Injin thinks... Oh, now Injin is changing its evaluation. Now it's beginning to think that after a5, black is fine. So little bit of a nuance by the engine. I would have thought knight a4 is better. And does knight a4 work? Engine thinks it is okay. It is okay. So knight a4, your knight is in danger. Two options really, I think. Bishop takes a4 or queen c6. Can't go queen c7, can we? If I take queen takes a5, knight c3, you don't have rook c3, right? This just seems bad. I think I just have queen d2 and I win. Yeah, queen d2, rook c5, dc5. So that wins. You don't have queen c7. And if you take here, yes, you are getting rid of your worst piece. In the French defense, bishop on d7 is the worst piece. Anything in the chat? No. Bishop takes a4, queen takes a4. You could go back, knight c6, but now your pressure on d4 is absolutely insignificant because the knight on c6 is pinned. I could play bishop d3, knight f5, and I could just castle, right? And I don't have any problems at all. Like my play is so easy. Put a rook on c1, put a rook on d1, maybe even g4 at some point. That play is very easy. I think bishop e7, g4 is already a possibility. No? Engine disagrees. Engine says knight h4 is okay for black. Although it gives us 0.8. Oh, now it's saying it's +1. Seems like Engine is agreeing with me. Like this is a traditional way to play. b5 here, f4 is possible as well. I think b5 first makes some sense. Knight a5, rook c1. Once I take away the c4 square, I'm ready to play on this side of the board with f4, f5. It's a possibility. Really a good point that you don't have the c4 square available. If you castle, which is possible, rook c5 is problematic. You take, I take, queen takes, and queen takes a5. If you play bishop e7 attacking the rook, then I have this wonderful bishop takes h7, king takes, and queen c2. Next move, the rook hangs. So these are some insights on this game. Queen c6 has been played by Pragyananda, which is of course one of the best moves. Now, really, there is no other move except knight c5. If you think that b5 is perhaps playable, it's a consideration. But after queen c7, I ask you, what have you really achieved with b5? You can claim that, well, you have stopped me from playing knight c6. Okay, fair enough. You can also claim that you've got the c file. Fair enough. But everything is outweighed by the prospect of knight c4 by black. So let's say if you were to play rook c1, knight c4, bishop c4, dc4. Notice that black has gained the bishop pair. Bishop pair in an open position is always a slight advantage. You can castle, keep developing, but bishop takes b5, no, simply. And if you were to play knight c3, defending the pawn, probably playing knight e4 in the future, knight d5 is problematic again, actually. Knight e4, you don't have knight d6, the bishop is always there. And queen f5 check, you lose the pawn again. So this is not really something. You have to play knight c5, and I think Fabiano would know this, and he'll play this very soon. Just gonna drink something because I've been speaking for a few minutes. Let's move on to Hikaru and Nepo for some time. It's an interesting position already. For sure, for sure. Let's move on there. Where is event? So I was covering this, I don't know before you were there or not, but there have not been any moves here. I said that white is threatening queen takes b7 and knight h4 ideas together. And Nepomniachtchi has to decide which one to allow. So one thing I pointed out was rook e8, a move like rook e8, knight h4, bishop e6. Now fails because queen takes b7. What? There is bishop g3 anyways. What? Ah, there's bishop f2. Were there any moves played? Oh, a5 was played. Okay, okay, I missed the recent moves. But yeah, with g3, you were getting rid of the prospect of bishop takes h2, as I was telling you. So a5 has been played by Nepomniachtchi, if I'm not mistaken. I just refresh. Yeah, okay, everything has happened. Oh wow, lots of moves. Queen b3, queen d7, c5, g3, knight d2. Yeah, a5 was a good find by Nepomniachtchi. If I play knight h4 now, what's going on here? My screen has gotten a bit blurred for some reason. Let me refresh. Something weird is happening. Okay, g3, a5. And now knight h4, for example, bishop e6. You can't really take on b7 because bishop g3 wins. And if you play queen d7, there is bishop takes f2. Do you guys also see my screen getting a bit whiter for no reason whatsoever? This is actually really weird. If I make an analysis move here, still changes the color, right? If I make an analysis move here, still changes color a little bit. Okay, just a little bit, I hope. Okay. Is this color change okay? Yeah, probably nothing special, right? It wasn't happening earlier, just all of a sudden it started happening. Okay, maybe it's a brightness issue on my side. No, seems okay. Seems okay. Oh, not so okay. Wait. Uh, wait. Let's see how we can fix this. Oh. Is the microphone back? Okay, the microphone is back. Okay, let me try to make a move. Let me know if it's okay or not. So let's say knight 5. This is not the main game, is it? Knight h3, king g2, knight g5. So if I'm making some analysis moves, the color is not changed. Oh, it's fine. Let's go. It's fine. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Awesome. 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 Okay, so as I was pointing out, this knight h4 idea wasn't working anymore. Knight d2 by Nakamura. Bishop e6, good move. If knight e4, you are saying that the queen will be in trouble, so you lose a piece here. That would be a disaster. Bishop e6, and we have queen takes b7. Knight takes f2, an excellent find by Nepomniachtchi. Bishop takes h7, an equivalent uh, excellent find by Nakamura. So he's clearly in prep. This is all preparation. Probably my strong guess is that even Nepomniachtchi is in preparation, but he's just trying to recall. He maybe saw this some time ago, but is not exactly sure of the nuances. King takes. Okay, why was this bishop at 7 necessary? If you play king takes, there is bishop takes g3 and you lose the queen. You lose the queen, right? But if you play bishop h7 insertion, king takes h7, now you're not taking straight away, you're giving this check first. King goes back to g8 and you're taking on a8 instead. Now, why could you not take on a8 without playing bishop h7? Because the bishop on d3 was hanging. That's the point. So you at least give this check. You at least gain back a pawn, get your knight out into a good position, and after king g8 you take. And now your knight is in a good square. You have gained an additional pawn. And Hikaru has analyzed this position. He claims this is at least slight advantage for him. And what's the material count here? I think white is up in exchange, if I'm not mistaken. Right? 3 pieces, 4 pieces for a rook. And the pawn count is also in white's favor. So white is up quite some material here. The only thing is that white's queen is in a slightly off position and white's king might be a little bit weaker than black's. So where is what will Nepomniachtchi exactly do? Also, white's pieces are inside. Knight d3 is a possibility. Rook e3, bishop f5. Rook e3, bishop f5. This is what engine says, and apparently there is some compensation. So if I were to play this position, let's say if I were playing queen b7, I would be calculating queen b7, getting my queen out. f6 perhaps? Or is there some tactic which I'm missing? No, I can't play queen b7, can I? Queen b7, there is bishop f4. And if I take the queen, plays bishop takes e3 with a check, so can't really play queen b7. Okay. The queen doesn't get out this way. I have to play knight f1 or knight f3, that means. I have to try to get this bishop out. We are still waiting for the moves. Nothing has so far, has there been? No, we're still waiting for Nepomniachtchi's reply. Oh no, there have been moves. Why do I... Here, bishop g4. Bishop g4 was not the best move by the engine. Engine says rook e8. Queen looks out of the game already for Hikaru. Isn't it good news for Nepo already for the long term? For the long term, yes. No, for the short term actually, because in the long term the queen can get out. In the short term, you have to prevent it from getting out. Nepomniachtchi has to be very quick and with his moves. If he's not precise, this queen will get out very soon, and black will be in some trouble. So it's Nepomniachtchi who has to be more precise. Knight h3 check, king here. He had to play rook e8, a slow move, but this is not easy to see at all. So let's say queen b7, and Nepomniachtchi has to find moves like bg4 now. Knight e5, bishop e5. Injun is giving some really weird lines here. And this is not easy to assess. And what Nepomniachtchi has done, bg4 is a practical move. He's trying to create some threat here, which I am yet to see. So if I play queen b7, which is what I really want to do, does he want to play f5, f4? Is that the idea? Could be, right? Hikaru has done some deep preparation. Even Injun is changing his evaluation. So queen b7 could be played and should be played. But yeah, the queen is trying to come back, and I am yet to see how Nepomniachtchi creates play because this knight is also stuck, isn't it? You gotta do something with that knight. Gotta do something. And this bishop is a little bit blunted by this structure. So I'm curious to see what Nepomniachtchi will play. Rook e8 is not easy. Well, the idea is takes. I can't really take here. There is queen e2 check, and king h1, bishop f3 is mate, right? Here. So you're not losing that bishop. But after rook e8, have there been any moves? No. Still waiting. Still waiting. Has rook e8 been played? Let me refresh. Oh wow, this has been played, and queen b3 by Hikaru very quickly, and Engine claims it's a mistake. Let me refresh to make sure, just to be double sure. Wow, okay, so Hikaru has made an error as Engine claims. But Hikaru is still in operation by the clock time. So what is this queen b3 early on? What do you think? What do you think, guys? What is this queen b3 early on? Unless I'm just making a mistake and this move has just been my analysis and not on the board. I refreshed the thing and it turns out it has actually been played. So what is it? What is it? But my quite simple. Why not knight e5? Okay, now the white screen is back again. What is chess.com doing today? Ah, come on, chess.com. Can't make the move here, right? Goes on to that. Weird. Chess.com is acting funny today. Let me go into this game. Let's see. Try to make an analysis move. Is that problem still there, guys, or is it gone? I don't know. This brightness thing. What's going on here? Is it okay now? 95. I think it's gone, right? Yeah, okay, it's okay. Queen b7. Rook e8, queen b3. Queen b3 was an error as we just pointed out. And apparently knight e5 is the only best move. But let's try to calculate knight e5, queen f5 ourselves. The idea with queen f5 is to go queen f2 and then grab this knight and play bishop f3 with checkmate. What I'm trying to say is that if you were to, let's say, make a pass with a3, Then queen f2 here. Queen takes e1 is also made, but you also can take on e5 and play bishop f3. That's the point I'm trying to highlight. So let's go back and try to calculate knight e5, queen f5 ourselves. Knight e5, queen f5. In that case, since you're threatening queen f2, my only option seems like rook f1, no? Rook f1, queen h5, I think. Where else does the queen go? Rook f1, queen h5. And then I can probably grab the bishop and be claimed to be okay. This is my thought. Rook f1, queen h5. Oh, I'm actually winning after queen c7. Yeah, of course, the bishop hangs. There's no threat now anymore. But you could also take and queen d7, knight d7. Knight f3 is an excellent move. Because this bishop is not going anywhere, the rook is pinned. And, well, this is not actually hard for Hikaru to find. What did he not like here? f6, here. Bishop e3, e4, knight d4, and this is okay for white. No extra pieces. Exchange up, c6 hangs. Wow, okay, this would have been pretty good for Hikaru. It's strange he didn't play knight e5. Very strange. And he played queen b3 very quickly, right? Is there a move which I am missing by any chance? Like knight e5? Is there something I am missing? So queen f5 is just wrong straight away. There is rook f1. Bishop e5 I take and play knight f3, in which case I am up in exchange. Is there any other option? Not really. Definitely something was here which Hikaru did not like. I don't know, d5. I don't know, knight f3. What else can you do as black? f6 is the only move. d5, fe5. And Hikaru could have played this position very comfortably after bishop e3. So really strange to me that he did not go for this. What are your thoughts? But bright, I can reduce brightness from my side. Oh, but then my video quality changes as well. Yeah, I mean this is on chess.com side. I can't change it myself. Let me see. Nope, nope. This is the standard one, but if I make a move, it changes. And this is a bug on chess.com site. Pretty sure it's a bug on their side. I'll have to change the game. I mean, the technique I'm using is changing the game. And yeah, it does become a bit bright, but there's not much I can do about it. Yeah, I know. I get your point. I get your point. Okay, let's move on to a different game. Let's see what going on here. We got some sort of situation here. A Berlin wall by with it. D3 declined. Bishop c5. Yeah, that's the best move. And you know, the c3 move is important here actually. Is that what Nijat played? No, he took. But c3 is better than castling. Bishop c6 is also another way to play it. It's a different way to play this. But if you play castle, black has knight d4, which actually equalizes. This equalizes pretty well. This has been known to be very solid for black. So you can't allow this. You have to play c3 here. c3 to stop knight d4. But Nijat goes for this structure. I think, yeah, there have been a lot of games here. Nakamura has played this idea with knight c4, knight a5 in a position I know. So castle, knight d7, this is okay. You play knight d7 because you want to play f6 and you want to reroute this knight to e6. Rook e1, short castle, has no knight c3 here. I usually get my knight out from d2, but knight c3 is another way, I guess. Queen e7, bishop e3, new plan. So white is saying, okay, I'm happy to double my pawns, open up the f file. Perhaps this knight is going this way, or you're just playing d4 and playing in the center. It's another plan, although I'm not sure about the how strong it is. It's just another plan. But the way I like to play this position, if I'm playing this as white, I would probably start with rook e1. Let's say my opponent castles. I'm playing knight d2. This is my preferred way of playing. I try to bring this knight to c4, and then some variations the knight also goes to a5. You can't play b6 because there is knight takes c6. So this is the idea I've always liked. Let's say f6, you try your standard idea. Engine says I can start with a4 or knight h4, but okay. I mean, I would have played c3 perhaps to go d4 at some point, which is also okay. Rook e8, and now d4 works out very well. Bishop f8, and now I can't get my knight c4 just yet, Engine says. But Engine says I can play queen b3 check, king h8, and shows me this idea with h3. Says you can wait. And if ed cd and you have the full center, and if you play knight b6, takes queen f7. Okay, a little bit concrete idea. A little bit concrete. But I'm going to show another line. Let's say I play knight c4, which is completely playable. Knight b6. I play knight a5. This is an excellent way to play this. And guess what? This bishop doesn't come out because b7 hangs. If you play rook b8 to defend this, then I can play knight b3. I can kick this bishop out. Bishop goes back. And now bishop e3. I'm ready to hop into c5. So this is some good maneuvering here. Let me know what you think about this. Let me know what you think about this maneuvering. Insights on this variation of Roy Lopez. Were you familiar with this, or do you have any other insights? Let me know, guys. Yeah. So, and bishop b5. Which other game shall we move on to? Any other game recommendations? Fabiano Bragaranda, we watched this. Okay, Nakamura's game has made some progress. Is this my analysis or the game? Queen b3. We saw rook takes e1, knight takes e1. And there's only one way to make a draw for black, and that is by playing queen e6. Not the hardest move in the world to find, but it's the only way. Queen b7, rook e8, queen b3, rook takes e1, knight takes e1, and yeah, queen e6 is the only way. Why? Okay, you might ask why not queen f5 now, as we were doing earlier. There is queen trade simply, and white is up some material. If you play queen e6, which is possible, then white has to respond with queen d3 because you are threatening queen e2. So I respond with a check. You play king g8 back, and I just put one of the knights to f3 and claim I'm fine. So this is a playable way. Knight d7, black is heavily down material, but somehow he's doing just fine. He's down an exchange and a pawn, so down by 4 material points, right? White 3, 4, 6. One from there and 2 pawns. Okay. No, wait, isn't. Why is it plus 3? Hikaru's up by 4 material points. No, an exchange. Oh, exchange is worth 2 points. I'm sorry about that. And an extra pawn. So 3 points up, but still black has compensation engine claims. Although, if white gets to consolidate with knight f1, bishop e3, I don't think black has any compensation at all. Maybe knight f6, knight e4. Yeah, not easy, not easy. Knight f1, knight f6 example. This is good. And if I play bishop e3, knight e4 is actually equal. Yeah. So this idea is there. And let's say rook e1, I try to bring more pieces into the attack. Black actually has a draw with knight g5. Okay, this is a funny draw, but it works. And it actually, there is a principal reason for this. And principally, this works out because black has more attackers than white has defenders for this king. The queen is not a defender, the rook is not exactly a defender. Only defender is the knight, and black has three attackers. So somehow this attack is working out for black. Somehow this attack is working out for black. Weird, weird. Rook e1, bishop f5, queen b3, queen d7. Yeah, okay. Any other games we should move on to? Any suggestions, guys? I think the brightness is back to normal by chess.com. They have fixed any bug which was there. Oh, Gukesh. Isomania, can you confirm if the brightness is back to normal? I think I saw some color change on my screen. Yeah, nice, nice. Oh, if I make a move, it changes again. You know, chess.com is so annoying today. So annoying. They got this weird thing. Just let me analyze properly. Well, okay, let's see the game. So Gukesh is playing on a 98.9 accuracy. Alireza is playing at a 99.7 accuracy. We had a London system, which is interesting. Alireza could have been more ambitious with his choice, but I guess he was not interested in doing some heavy preparation. So he went for this line. Gukesh goes for early queen b6. I go for bd6, but I go before c5. So the variation I play against London system is e3 here and bd6. And this is actually supposed to be good for black. I mean, not good, but it equalizes traditionally. If you play bishop g3, for example, I can play castle, knight d2, and c5. The point is that after c3, I'm playing queen c7 directly instead of knight c6 because I want to put the knight on d7 and then play e5. This equalizes. But you can't do the same thing exactly after playing c3, c5, I mean, since since if I play knight f3, e6, knight d2, bd6, white has the additional option of bb5 check. So that's why you play bd6 before playing c5. So that's why Gukesh goes for this queen b6 idea. Very concrete. You are threatening to take the pawn, but white, of course, can get some activity for it. Alireza goes for rook b1, cd, ed, cd. Okay, bd6 was possible as well. The problem with bd6 traditionally has been that you can take and c4. I think this is a problem. Engine says you go bd3 first, but I know c4 for a fact is not very pleasant to face as black. Let's say a3 castle, b4 bishop e7, c4 is also very pleasant for white. Quite quick play, bishop e2 and dc4, knight c4. But queen b6 is playable, rook b1, and now goes for this idea and goes for bishop d7. See, Nepomniachtchi played something similar. bb5 is the idea, exchange your bad bishop. This is your bad bishop, exchange it for white's good bishop. So Firouzja plays c3, bb5, h4, knight d7. And now it's a decision whether to put the knight on c6 or d7. How would you take that decision? That's a question. I'm not sure as well. I'll have to think where to put the knight, c6 or d7. Because just when I saw Gukesh played knight d7, I thought to myself, wasn't the knight better placed on c6? But perhaps Gukesh knows something better. Where do you think the knight belongs? It's fine if you claim so. If you claim so, I think it's still changing. But okay, let's get on to the chess question. Where do you think the knight belongs? C6 or D7? C6 or D7? It's interesting for positional purposes. Tactically, I don't think it makes any difference right now. But why knight on D7, not on C6? It's a thought, isn't it? I can see one reason. I can see one reason why the knight goes to D7. If you play knight D7, knight E5, you have the option of bishop D6. You have this option. Maybe you have to be worried about this slightly. Is there knight takes F7? Engine thinks there isn't. There is knight D7 and queen D7, but this is okay. This is equal. You cannot play BD6 if the knight is on C6. So let's say knight C6, knight E5, BD6. This is not possible. Oh, it is actually. I thought knight takes F7 was there. Apparently, no. Engine still thinks white has H5 and the knight belongs on D7 in that case. Okay, maybe that's not the reason. So why not knight C6? Engine now says it's playable. And if I play knight D7, Engine thinks this is also playable. I guess it's a matter of taste then, more than positional chess. Weird. Because I thought the knight belonged to C6. I thought the knight belonged to C6. Okay, queen B3. Not the greatest move by Firouzja. Engine says that after bishop takes F1, black actually equalizes very well. If you trade the queens, of course black is in no danger. The best white can get is a draw, I think. King takes F1, knight H5, queen B6, A B6, rook takes A2 pressure, knight takes F4 pressure. Yeah, black has no problems whatsoever here. Opening hasn't gone very well for Firouzja here. If he wanted to create some chances, he should have played H5, try to go H6. And if H6, maybe knight E5 was some way to create some sort of chances. If let's say black takes, which would be not exactly good, bishop takes, you want this knight to move away, and then you want something like queen G4. But it's a dream. I could play bishop E7. At least keep queens on the board if you want to play for something. So not exactly sure what Firuja is trying to hope for. If he's fine with a draw, then well, yeah, of course, this is okay. But if he wants to play for a win, then this is not the way to go. Not the way to go. What do you think, guys, about Firuja's play so far? Let me see if there have been developments in the Nakamura game. Some developments here. Queen e6 was found. Queen d3 check was found. Queen f1, the best move. We didn't consider queen f1, did we? Because we didn't consider bishop f5 as well. We were looking at king g8. Bishop f5 is another move, and queen f1 is actually bringing your queen to the defense. We all know how strong Nakamura is at defense, and given the time he has on the clock, there is no way he's going to make any blunders in defense, of course. So much time on the clock. Nepomniachtchi, who's actually known for being up on the clock, is down now. So it's looking very interesting, isn't it? Nepomniachtchi is the one who's struggling to come up with the best. Nepomniachtchi actually has a very practical move here, as Engine shows me. And I think if I saw this move in the game as white pieces, I would be mildly scared. Mildly. So, what do you think about the move? Actually, I want to ask you guys, what do you think black should play here? There is a very interesting move for black here, which can create white some problems. Very practical move. Let's see. What do you guys think? Very practical move for black. Tries to gain more space. Knight f. Oh, so you want to play bishop h3? Uh, yeah, knight f4 check. If I could just move my king to. If I play king g1, you have knight e2. Is that what you're arguing? And if I play king f2, you have knight h3 again. Is that your argument? It might be weird, but don't I have knight f4, king h1? So knight f4, king h1, bishop h3, queen f2. That's what I'm thinking. And what's your plan there? So I'll repeat the variation just for your sake. Knight f4, king h1, bishop h3, queen f2. Am I not defending there nicely? Let me check with the engine what it says. Knight f4 check, king h1 is the move. And if bishop h3, queen f2 is actually +3 for white. Wow. I thought, okay, I didn't think it was +3. I thought I was fine, but +3 is a lot. Can you believe that? It's actually +3 for white here. And the idea is that I'm going knight f3, knight g5, sort of. And if you stop this, then queen e3, exchanging the queens, and your attack is all gone. The bishop is blunted, this knight is not there, the knight is not coming to f4, the bishop on h3 doesn't do anything. So essentially all your attack is gone. King h1, bishop e4 check. Let's go back. But oh no, bishop, you might think bishop e4 check is mate, but it's sorry. You might think bishop e4 check is mate, but I'm simply grabbing, no? And I grab and play, let's say, knight f3. You should not get rid of your attackers. Your bishop on f5 is one of your strongest attackers, so exchanging it is not a great advice. I just takes knight f3, and I think I'm completely fine. Perhaps even winning there. Does Engine agree? Bishop e4. Engine says I can play knight f3 or takes. Both are good. And knight f3. And yeah, knight g5 will be there at some point. You have to retreat the knight, and I can play king g2 or queen g2. I like queen g2 a little bit more because I can threaten knight g5 in the future. So let's say if you play f6 to stop all those ideas, I actually have bishop e3, which is a funny move. If you take, I have rook e1. That so happens to be the case why knight f4 check doesn't work, but it's a good attempt. It's a good attempt to consider. You should definitely consider this move during the game. It just happens to be the case that king h1 defends very well. The move actually is g5, which can create some problems. Perhaps if you play, so engine shows one variation. If you play a4, black has g4, so you're creating a bigger mating net around this king. And knight g5, knight e4 might be a bigger problem to solve. Key point, the very key point is that you're taking away the f3 square away from white. So g5 is the move. You have to take away the f3 square away from white's knights. So you might ask, what does white actually do against g5, right? That's a very valid question. So g5, now that black is threatening to play g4, you should put a knight instantly on f3 or d3. Now my thought would have been to play f3 if I'm playing purely by logic, knight f3, g4. And my thought would have been to play knight g1, exchange the strong knight. If black plays knight g5, not allowing me to exchange, then I would have to look for some move to defend against these two ideas. Engine doesn't think it's quite easy, but queen e2 comes to mind, exchanging queens, queen g6, black declines the offer. And apparently, Engine says play b3, which is not an easy move to find at all. I don't even know what the idea is, but we can figure that out probably. Okay, Engine just says play bishop b2, get your rook out. Interesting. Engine does seem to think that knight d3 is a bit better. If you play g4, there is knight f2. So Engine wants to exchange these knights this way. And now knight g5, queen d1. And you probably maneuver this knight to e3, put pressure on g4. So this is like an example in piece placement. And this is a move, this is a kind of maneuver Carlsen would play, Magnus Carlsen. Is that understandable, or am I explaining the concepts fine? The idea is to put pressure on the g4 pawn. Am I explaining it properly, or do you have any other questions? Yes, it's good. Okay, nice to see. Yeah, let's check other games. What's going on? Let me refresh actually. Let's see if there have been updates here. Queen f1 and no move from Nepomniachtchi so far. He looks tensed on the screen. I have the screen in front of me. He looks tense there. He's got his hand on his face. Hand on his head actually. So he looks tense, but okay, we'll find out. While Nakamura has almost not spent any time on his clock virtually. So Nakamura is not losing this game, I can assure you that. Let's move on to other games. Seems like other games are pretty balanced. All of them seem balanced. I was interested in the French I was talking about. Yes, why not attack c5 and d4 pawns in the meantime? Which game are you talking about? When you say why not attack c5 and d4 pawns, which game? Naka game or this game? Oh, Nepo. Okay, let's see. Okay, yes, you can attack. How do you propose we attack those pawns? I know they are weak, they are unsupported, but how do you attack them? Because I can always put a knight on f3 to defend the d4 pawns, right? One thing is that when you're attacking the king, you want to be entirely focused on attacking the king. If you go for material, you're losing time on the process. Because taking material on the other side of the board loses some time, doesn't it? But queen f3 is white's move, not black's move, no? Queen, if I play queen f3, that's white's move. Or do you mean queen f6? Probably mean queen f6. Queen f6, I can put a knight on f3 and I am not in any sort of trouble. Oh, hi there, Homa. How are you doing today? Very pleased to see new people in the chat. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's poor, but it's in the wrong direction, I would say. It's slightly in the wrong direction. If let's say knight f3, let's say if queen f6, knight f3, bishop e4 was working, I would think it's a fantastic idea, but it's not working. If you play queen f6, knight f3, bishop e4, I just take your knight with the king. So king takes h3 works out completely fine for me, and I'm not getting checkmated. So yeah, you have to be very concrete. That's why I told you that black has to be so precise here. Yeah, yeah, very nice to see. Homa, which game are you most excited to see today? Which game? Yeah. We were just analyzing Nakamura versus Nepomniachtchi. We are just discussing some ideas because Nepomniachtchi is down some material, but he's got some activity. However, he needs to play very concretely to make that activity work. And that's what we're trying to figure out. What's the best plan for him? Nakamura has found the good move queen f1, and he's threatening to bring the knights to f3. Yeah, we can check out what's happening there in the women's section. I'll just have to see where to get that from. I have to go here. So the screen would look a little bit weird for a second. So ignore that. I have to find the thing. So it's games. Uh, Humpy's position looks interesting. Humpy's position. Select a women's candidate section. Yeah. No, we're looking at Humpy's game. So, yeah, sure, no worries. I just thought this imbalance structure is quite interesting to look at. So we have the Roy Lopez. Let's see how we got here in the first place. Knight e7 c3, knight g6 d4, takes, bishop b4 check, bishop d2, takes castle. Okay, this is all standard. I'm not going to commentate here because this is usual. Although knight e7 is a line which has been played a lot by Ronak Sadhwani and Grandmaster Anton Demchenko. These two guys have played this line a lot, a lot. And if I remember my analysis correctly, I can show you one variation that if you play knight e7 directly and let's say castle knight g6, I know this variation is very popular. c6 bishop e2 queen b6 is the way to play for black. You trade the queens and you hope for the best. Apparently they have won some games like this, although this is objectively fine for white after something like bishop e3 or queen d3. You can analyze this. With a6 there is a slight difference. If you play this with a6, let's say bishop a4 knight e7, castle knight g6, and now d4 ed knight d, there's a slight difference, and that is that after how was I getting that variation? Wait, yeah, after takes you don't have c6 nor do you have queen b6 since the bishop is on a4. So that's a nice subtlety there. If you play b5 bishop b3, notice that c5 c4 is not a threat because I have bishop takes f7, king takes, and queen d5, and I gain the rook. So this is the subtlety between playing knight e7 knight g6 directly or playing a6 knight e7 knight g6. Both are possible move orders. They have their own subtleties. I just don't remember all of them precisely. I just showed you one for an example. d4 takes. There's also another move h4 here which has been tried before. h4 d5 I have definitely seen before. This is complicated theory. h5 d4. This gets really messy. But c3, knight g6, d4. Anna Muzichuk plays this conservatively. Castle d5, bishop c6. It's good to ruin the pawn structure because now you create a imbalanced position where you can take advantage through your rooks. Firuza's game, I'm his fan. We were just looking. Were we looking at Firuza's game? No, we looked at Firuza's game like 10-15 minutes ago, I think, and it was a quite boring London system. We'll get back to his game for sure, but I just want to give some insights on this game. After that, we can look at Firuza's game. Is that okay? I want to give some quick insights here because I think this position is instructive. So as I was saying, now White has created some imbalance which she can use to target the c6 and c7 pawns and potentially play for a win. So this is good. E5, f6. Yeah. Now, you know what? Many people, when they see f6, they think, oh wow, this is good move because black is creating play on the f file. I say there are two sides to the coin. On one hand, you are creating file for attack. On the other hand, you are weakening your king slightly because now there will only be two pawns closer to the king. So I think this is a two-sided coin. If I take on f6, this is in favor for black, and I'll tell you why. Because now knight f4, queen g6 puts a lot of pressure here. Lot of pressure. And it's not easy to defend. Let's say I were to play rook c1. knight f4 is possible. Engine says a5, but for example, let's say knight f4. Let's say you make another pass move b3. Bishop h3 is actually a killer. You take, there is queen g6. So personally, I would not be taking here. I would be putting pressure along these pawns, and I ask black how does he want to create some pressure here. One good idea is to play queen c2. You attack the pawn, and you have also gotten rid of bishop g4 pins. They're not there anymore. So that's one way to play. If you play rook c1, maybe black has some compensation. He doesn't need to she doesn't need to defend this pawn. She could in fact play knight f4 directly. And if you were to grab the pawn, which seems natural, black has an insane idea. Queen d7, queen g4. And it's very hard to defend the king. Rook c1, let's say. Queen g4, g3. And you don't even need to do anything because there is no threat. You're not threatening to take. You could just play a move like bishop e6. And engine claims you're completely fine. Even I think principally you are completely fine. Black definitely has sufficient compensation for a pawn. Two attackers, only one defender. King h1, knight h3. If you were to grab this pawn, f takes e5, d takes e5. Now the rook joins the attack. Rook b8, b3. And engine says d4, bd5. With this bishop coming in, it's over. So it could be dangerous, right? So white has to take into account black's attack. And once, so this is a matter of short term versus long term, strategic versus dynamic. Black has dynamic play, but he has strategic weaknesses. So if white manages to calm down black's position in the short term, then white has advantage in the long term. White has the positional advantage in the long term because of these weak pawns. It's just a matter of how you stop black's attack. So queen c2 was my proposition. Knight f4. And my proposition would be rook e1. Engine thinks g3, but g3 looks risky to me. I would either play rook a1 or rook fe1. I have to decide which one. But I hope I made you understand the concept clearly. So to summarize, white has to stop black's dynamic play or temporary attack. And in return, if he does that, if she does, then c6 and c7 are long-term weaknesses. Easy to understand the concept. Once you have the concept in mind, we can find the moves. But understanding the concept and knowing what you're playing for is more important. So yeah, what do we think? Is that concept clear? If you have any questions, you can let me know. Of course, I'll answer. I'll just wait and then I'll move on to Firuza's game. Let's see. No? No comments? Okay, I'm moving on to Firuza's game then. Homa requested that. So I'll have to go back to the moves event. Okay, let me just go back for a second and go ahead. Candidates. And let's see this game. Yeah. Okay, so we got this. Oh wow, Firuza's gone for rook h3 idea. Aggressive. But did he not play queen b3? I swear he played queen b3. And I called it a mistake. Or was that in my analysis? Wow. Okay. I thought he played queen b3, which was a bad move, but apparently he hasn't played that. He's gone for rook h3. He's trying to create some counterplay on this side of the board. How he does that exactly, that's we don't know for sure. Now, my point is that black can play h5 here. And I think now rook g3, g6 would never make any sense. My proposition was that Firuza should have started with h5, and after h6 we can now look at rook h3 ideas. I think they work a little bit better now. Because now you play rook h3, I think black has h5, which stops any good counterplay here. You really wanted your pawn on h5. It's so I don't think rook h3 is a bad move. I just think it's a slightly ill-timed. You should have played h5 first and then rook h3. Alireza played rook h3, so generous, giving free points to everyone. It's not a losing move. He had the sort of a right plan, but he had to play h5 first. He had to play h5 first. Also understand his psychology. He has not won many matches. He's got to try his best. He's got to try to create some chances. How else do you create chances? Yeah, it's a funny looking move. It's a funny looking move. I'm telling you, after h5, I don't understand the plan. I don't understand the plan either. But if he had played h5, then rook h3 could help you play g4 in the future. Then it would make a little bit more sense. But after rook h3, h5, I don't know what the plan is either. I mean, we can try to analyze this. Let's say we play knight e5. Knight takes e5, bishop takes e5, knight g4, stopping any sort of idea with rook g3, bishop f4, bishop e7 or g6, let's say. Yeah, it's really not clear why the rook is here. I'm going to be honest with you as well. One thing is, I mean, you can argue that the rook on h1 is actually worse than the rook on h3, so the rook on h3 actually has some leeway, and you'll just tuck your king in. But by itself, I don't see rook h3 having any plan, especially after h5 if it is played. No, a4 is definitely a move. The reason I was analyzing a4 is because it does not connect with rook h3 in any way. That's the only thing. We were trying to analyze if rook h3 has a particular point, which it doesn't seem to right now to me. But a4, yeah, you could definitely play on that side of the board. I completely agree. So let's say rook h3, h5. Let's analyze this plan. A4, if you take, which I think you shouldn't because that was your idea in the first place, king takes f1. You can tuck your king to g1 and you argue that your rook on h3 is slightly better than the rook on h1. The point still stands. Why did you not play h5 first as white? Why did you not play h5 and then rook h3? That point still stands. Now, Gukesh can exchange this bishop, and there is no way on earth I expect Gukesh to lose this position. It is such a solid position with these pawns, and you could also play g6, king f8, king g7, or even castle, and you're completely fine. For argument's sake, let's say white plays queen c2, black castles, and white plays knight g5 to get some pressure here. But it does not do anything. I just have e5. Literally, I just have e5. And there is no attack whatsoever. Even rook g3, e4, I completely block this queen down. And these pieces are just badly placed. There's nothing more to be said here. So I think you start to appreciate how bad, or like how planless, if that's a word, how planless Firuza's position is. What do you think? What do you think? Looks like a 40 move draw. Let's see if Nepo played any moves. Yeah, sure. Nebomnishi has played knight d7. He's not gone for this standard g5 g4 plan. Not standard, I mean the complicated g5 g4 plan. So Nakamura's move is quite simple now. All he has to do is put a knight on f3. You could go knight d3 as well, but knight f3 is the simplest. And now I don't think it would work. There is knight g1 very quick, and you don't have knight g5. Earlier, when the pawn was on g4, you could have played knight g5. You can't do that anymore. And if g4, knight takes, pawn takes, this is actually +3 for white. And you have knight f3, this idea, as I pointed out some time ago. Although it looks a little bit dangerous after queen e3 check, queen f2 actually solves all the problems. So knight d7, knight f3, and apparently you have to play bishop g4 or knight f6. Let's say knight f6. That is more consistent with knight d7. Then I have queen e1 exchanging queens, or at least trying to. Knight e4. And wow, white has a brilliant idea here. Only one brilliant idea, actually. And the position is only. White actually only has chances to play for a win if he plays this one idea. Try to find that out. Only one idea, which is very, very pleasing to the eye. Very pleasing to the eye. What is idea? Only one move. Only one. Yeah. Let's see. Let's see. I'll give you a hint. It's about activating your pieces. So you want to activate the rook and the bishop, but which one? And how? Yeah, sure, sure, sure. Maybe the audio wasn't clear enough. Uh, so white only has one move to play for a win here, and it's about activating the pieces, the bishop or the rook. How do you do that? Sorry if the audio just went away or something. B3 is not the. I mean, I understand your point. You want to play B3, BB2, but try similar but different. You'll see it now. You'll see it now. B3, BB2 is a plan. It's just not the best one. If you want quick defense, this other plan works a little bit better. A4, B4. Yes, Alberto. Welcome to the stream. Absolutely. A4, B4. Or even A4, rook A3. You can also put a rook on A3 to go rookie. King F1. It's a move, but it's what are you trying to achieve? Okay, but A4 is the idea. Yeah, A4 is a fantastic move. You are ready to pass pawn from this side of the board, and also you have rook A3 idea. So A4 would actually make Nepomniachtchi's job very difficult here. You still have to go for the G5 idea we discussed, but then as soon as we see G5, the way to defend is to play knight G1. That's the best way to play this position. Exchange the defenders as quickly as possible. Sorry, exchange the attackers as quickly as possible. Apologies for the screen. Exchange the attackers as quickly as possible. Now, it seems like let's say black makes a move, right? Let's say black plays king g8, a pass move. I will not take directly because that actually doesn't work out that well. King here, there is knight g3. Queen takes, there is bishop takes. But if I were to play king g1, which is actually fine, nothing special, but queen f6 actually makes a draw because now the plan of attacking d4 and putting pressure here works. Engine claims white is still fine after queen e3, but this looks scary for white. This looks scary, I'm going to be honest with you. Although you do threaten knight takes e4. So my thought would have been to probably play rook a3 first because I know this knight is not going anywhere. I just want to put one more piece into the defense. So yeah, g5, knight g1 is always there. Engine says you have to find bishop d8. No, now it changes between g5 and bishop d8. It's another idea to put the bishop here, but still rook a3, bishop f6, and now rook e3. Finally, your pieces are doing much better now. And apparently black does not have much here. He does have some, but he does not have full compensation. And black's king is now looking more and more secure. Knight h4. Where do you say that, Stefan? Welcome to the stream, first of all. Welcome to the stream. Where do you mean knight h4? Which move exactly? Is it after knight f6 that you mean knight h4? Here? Where do we go? Like knight h4? Do you mean here or in a different position? That's what I need to figure out. If you were to go knight h4 here, actually doesn't seem horrible at first sight. Knight h4, bishop g4. How do we respond then after bishop g4? The point is, if I play knight h4, bishop g4, and then if I play knight df3, so knight h4, bishop g4, knight df3, black has knight e4. And I don't like this knight standing on e4. Doesn't seem like I've done the best job. Although, yeah, let's check. Knight e, if I play knight h4, bishop g4, bishop g4 is okay, and knight f3. Knight e4 is actually better for black, as I thought. But in fact, after knight h4, we have knight f4 check, bishop h3 is coming. King h1, bishop h3 is actually very good now. And it's not easy to play. Queen f2, knight g4, and you're actually busted. So not here. Queen f1, knight d7, Hikaru has played knight f3 or no? He has played, no? Yeah, Hikaru does find the best move. He played knight f3. Alternatively, he could have started with a4, but knight f3 is good. We just have to see if he has found this knight f6 queen e1 idea. Nebamyashi looks very upset on the screen. Very upset. I don't think he has confidence in his position, even though with precise play he might be fine. He's lost confidence in his position, it seems like. Looks very tensed. And Hikaru's up on the clock as well. Very much. 58 for Nashi and 137 for Hikaru. So, do you want me to continue with this game or do you want me to look at something else? Alberto, Stefan, Homa, Isomaniac. Let's move on to Fabi versus Prague. It's the French on the board. Yeah, French is always, special. There we are. There we are. Okay, seems like some. Oh wow, seems like Pragyananda has gained some counterplay. He's got his bishop placed onto an absolutely wonderful diagonal. He's ready to castle with his king completely safe. Fabiano has not gotten any advantage out of the opening. Because Fabiano has given black the c file, a full bishop's diagonal, and black's worst piece, which was the light square bishop, the bishop that was standing on d7 few moves ago, is gone. So this bishop, which was black's worst piece, is now gone. So I'm actually curious to see where Fabiano went wrong. Knight a4, queen c6, knight c5, knight c4. Bishop c3 was the start of a bad maneuver. He should have played bishop c1. The bishop on c1 dominates this knight. because all the squares of the knight are covered by this bishop. And let's say b6 as it happened in the game. Takes, bishop d3 is a little bit better because these bishops are eyeing towards black's king. Not actually sure why he put the bishop on c3. Why would you do this? Unless you want to play b5, bishop b4, it doesn't make sense to put bishop on c3. To me. Fabiano must know something better. So b6 happened, knight d7, queen d7, bishop d3, g6, queen e2. This is good. h5, bishop d2. But the question is, if you're putting your bishop onto this diagonal, why was it not better to have this bishop simply on c1? Why are we wasting a tempo putting this bishop here? That's what doesn't make sense to me. It's actually quite inconsistent with queen e2. You should just castle. Bishop h6 and now play, I don't know, maybe rook a4 perhaps? a4, a5 or a4, b5 and then a5? I don't think bishop d2 is accurate. It's very inconsistent. What do you guys think? Yeah, Fabi game and Alireza maybe after I'm there. Yeah, you see what I mean? This idea with bishop c3 and then bishop d is inconsistent. Because why did you not play bishop c1 in one go? Can I please flip it? Okay. Yeah, you see how pleasant this looks optically from black side. Can you please flip it? We are supporting Prague. Okay. Yeah. The point is, do you see how pleasant this looks? So bishop h6, rook b1. I could go short. What was played here? Bishop d2. Yeah, which was inconsistent. We took bishop h6, and it's actually Prague who has a slight advantage, and reasonably so. Pragyananda does not have any weaknesses in his position. Black has d4 as a weakness. The c file can serve as a weakness, and this diagonal is very strong. So so Fabiano is on the defense. Pragyananda will not lose this game. Okay, what's the plan for Pragyananda? Yeah, that's a good question. It's actually not that difficult. You castle, put a rook on c3, put a rook on c8, and you claim the control of the c file. You potentially put the queen on a4, put the pawn on a5, and start creating attack here or here. The knight may come to c6 or to f5 to attack d4. We'll have to see. But black's piece placement is actually very simple. Knight will go to f5 or c6, rook to c3, another rook to c8, queen to a4. Alternatively, you can put a rook on c7 and then on c8. Both are possible. You have to be a little bit worried about bishop a6, but it's not something dangerous. As whenever the bishop goes to a6, you have knight f5. So bishop cannot take here. Can't do both things at the same time. That's the plan. What's Fabi's plan now? I would lose much without a fight as white versus equal strength player. Yeah, now that's a great question. No, you have asked a fantastic question. How do you defend in a slightly worse position, right? Okay, let's go through move by move. Now, since you're not castled, you have to do that. There is no way to prevent rook c3, right? If you were to play knight b1 to c3, you actually fall for rook c1, which is a blunder. So can't do that. No way to prevent rook c3, so might as well not prevent it at all. And get castle. Let's start with that. Let's start with developing pieces. Okay, you castle, I castle. Both players castle. And now Fabiano notices the threat of rook c1. His best solution, his absolute best solution, in my opinion, is to play b5. What you do is you don't stop rook c3, but at least you stop queen a4 and knight c6. You at least stop two things. You've taken away a good square from this knight, and if knight f5, you can take. So that's one thing which is fine. Now rook c3. Okay. Fabiano knows that Pragyananda wants to double, right? Two things he can do. He can either contest the c file, or he can eventually just play towards black's king. Two options. I think contesting the c file is playing into Pragyananda's hands. If you play rook c1, I personally think queen c7 is uncomfortable for white. Injun thinks you should still play rook d1 and lose the control of the c file. Okay, now I'll try to explain you the plan I'm talking about. I think white should play knight f3. You say, Pragyananda, yes, you double. Completely agreed, you double. But there is nothing on the c file you can attack. That's what you're telling Pragyananda. Fabiano's saying that much first of all. He's then saying that since your queen can't come to a4, you can't attack a3. So next question that we ask is what to do with this knight? What can Pragyananda do? Pragyananda, it's actually white's move. So let's say white makes a pass move like g3. What can Pragyananda do now? One idea is to play king g7, slowly improve the position, or to play king queen d8. Just wait for white to do something. If you play h4, for example, then Pragyananda can argue that he can play knight f5, which is a hard decision to make, whether you play this or not. But Fabiano actually can claim some sort of a fortress after h4. I think that's his best plan, to make some sort of a fortress. So if knight f5 gets traded, which pawn would you take? And is castling safe for Prag now? Castling is safe right now, but if you play knight f5, here for example, after bishop takes, you have to take with the e pawn. And this is actually good for black. E6 is not dangerous because there is f6 and you take away the e5 square, which is very critical. E7 and queen d7. And king f7, this pawn will eventually fall. It doesn't queen because all the key squares are controlled. So it turns out that the best point for Fabiano is to make a fortress after b5. b5 is an absolutely great positional move. Rook c3, knight f3, rook c8, and play a move like g3, putting pawn on dark squares because white's bishop is on dark squares. So you are happy to weaken pawns but not squares. It's better to not weaken dark squares. You can put pawns on dark squares and you can restrict this bishop. Okay, rook b3, rook c3. Let's consider that. Let's say you play rook b3, rook b1. I don't give you the option to double here. Let's say you play this, which is your point. Your rook actually gets trapped here. Imagine. Like you were clearly winning and now your rook gets trapped. So you could argue that why not take, and after rook takes b1, play rook c3. Why not this, right? Attack here. Fabiano starts to gain advantage after a4. It's actually really weird. But now white is playing on this side of the board and the c file is meaningless without the doubling. If you were to play queen c7, queen d1, king g7, for example, let's say white improves his position with king g2, let's say king g8 back, knight g1, knight e2, and Fabiano can remaneuver his pieces. Your rook gets kicked out. Once your rook gets kicked out, let's say to a3, you have lost control of all the key squares. And Fabiano's completely fine here. So this is how you defend a slightly worse position. Like one idea for Fabiano was to actually just create a fortress. And it's actually funny that you can create. Why not rook g8 and go for g5 h6 attack after white castles? Let's see. Rook g8 and go for g5 h6. Okay. So your claim is that bishop h6, short castle. We can go for rook g8. Understand, understand something, that bishop b5 is a possibility. Uh-huh. But let's say bishop b5 was not there. You're still not playing g5 because queen takes h5 is always there. Now you can argue, well, let's say I play a move like, I don't know, let's say I play a move like bishop a6, rook c7. And for the sake of argument, I'm losing my voice here. Sorry. Mhm. For the sake of argument, let's say we play a move like knight f3. And if you were to play h4, this point doesn't still stand because after g5, I always have h3. You don't simply have enough pieces to attack g2. Let's say I play h3, g5, bishop b5. White is still doing great here, knight h2. Your attack simply doesn't have that firepower because you don't have enough pieces on the king side to attack white's king. That's the point. Your play, your dominance as black, Pragyananda, your dominance as black lies on the queen side instead of the king side. That's the point. Is that clear? One thing you could argue, why did we not start with g5 here? Still, there is bishop b5 and knight c6. There is still rook c1, and there is actually so much pressure on the c file. There's actually so much pressure on the c file that you simply cannot coordinate your forces on both sides of the board. You can't attack on the king side and the queen side at the same time, or you can't defend on the queen side and attack on the king side at the same time. But we saw this making a fortress idea for Fabiano, which actually works out quite well. So I'm curious to see how the game works out. Fabiano has played BB5 or no? He has. So it's playable. It's playable. We just thought that he could have started with a different move order. He could have castled, and played b5. We thought that was the move order, but bb5 is possible as well. Knight c6, which has been played. Knight f3, short castle, short castle. Notice. Oh, yes, play king f8, get the knight to f5 and take with the g pawn and open g file for the rook. You don't understand. Okay, let's say I give you the g file, right? The rook on g8 is not sufficient to checkmate me. Like all your other pieces are not there to attack me on the king side. I'll show you an example. I'll clarify the point. So let's say white castles. Knight f5. Okay, come on. The chess base is bugging. Not chess base, chess.com. So let's say you play short castle. I have to. Let's say you play knight f5. Bishop takes f5. G takes f5. Short castle. It's a fine position, but the idea with rook g8 doesn't actually achieve anything. Firstly, the pawn is hanging. Let's say the pawn is not hanging. I could still play rook d1, and I question you, how do you put pressure on the g2 pawn? Your pieces are not ready to come to this side of the board. No, okay, it's not terrible. It's not terrible. You still have some sort of advantage as black. No, not in this exact position, but with that idea. The problem is in your plan with trying to attack with a single rook. That's not going to work. That's all I'm trying to say. Well, in the meanwhile, let me figure out how to solve this brightness issue. Firuza's game looks completely different. Has he played h5 now? Wow. Yeah. Wow. Okay, look. Rook h3, bishop e7. We actually had correct move by Alireza. He understood his mistake and corrected it immediately on the next move. Immediately. Like Gukesh had one chance to gain some positional advantage by playing h5 himself, but when Gukesh did not play h5, Alireza went straight for it. So great correction by Alireza there. And h6 a4 bishop here. A4 was your idea. uh, Isomaniac. And king takes a1, short castle, knight, king g1 is fine. But now you have knight e5, g4, and then potentially rook g3 idea. Now we sort of see the point behind rook h3. You were asking me what was the point behind rook h3, no, or someone else. But anyways, it doesn't matter. The point is that now knight e5, g4, rook g3. That's the idea. And this is precisely why I said that h5 had to be played first before rook h3. But it's a similar thing. Okay. Any other questions or any other games you want me to look at? Do you want me to go back to Prug's game? Do you want me to go to Nakamura's game? Yeah, knight g1. We still looking at this one, or do we have another game in mind? We had this, or is this the game moves? Yeah. Knight g1 has been played. We were looking at queen e1, but knight g1 is also possible. And now Nakamura's asking black how to make progress. If knight e4, Nakamura wants to put this knight on f3 and then claim that, well, this knight will get exchanged and this knight can come to g5 at some point. Happens to be the case that black can play g5 right away here. But then we actually follow the same plan with a4, rook a3. So this is actually similar position to what we discussed. But I don't know what you do if you don't play knight e4. Do you have a different move? What else to do? What else can you do? Let's say you make a move like king g8, a pass move. I could play queen e2, knight e4, and I can now exchange, right? And king g1. So I've gotten rid of one annoying piece. And the more pieces I exchange, closer I am to simplification, and closer I am as winning for white. So hard to say. Hard to say. What Nepomniachtchi should do there. I think this might be a win for Nakamura. Nepomniachtchi looks really stressed on the stream. Really, really stressed. Even though he's playing at 97.6 accuracy. Yeah, what do you guys think? What should I cover now? If nothing, I can actually even end the stream. Yeah, but let's see, let's see. I'll just wait for someone to let me know something. Yeah, maybe I need to speak a little bit louder, closer to the microphone. No? Given some insights to all the games, and I think they were very interesting. Yeah, it's a you now know in detail what each game of the candidates we should be doing. Think I missed one game for Nijat. Haven't looked at that one. I'll quickly have a look what's going on there. Nijat Abasov is playing with it. Yeah, oh, we did have a look at this Roy Lopez, right? Where we had knight e2, short castle, knight g3, g6, queen d2, c5. Yeah, I mean, with it, yeah, it's a question whether the bishop belongs here or not, but at least with it is countering the pawn here. So cannot be too bad. Vidit is also arguing that by playing g6, he has completely restricted this knight on g3. It doesn't have much scope. And it is easier to remaneuver this bishop to a better diagonal than it is to remaneuver this knight. That's what Vidit's claim is, and that's why he's doing fine here. Queen c3, f6. F6 was not necessary actually because knight takes e5 was not threatened. With it, could have gone for this idea with ab4, ab4, cb4, queen takes c7, and bishop a6. Now this is a little bit weird because you have to calculate this line with knight takes e5, queen takes e5, queen takes d7, and there is b3, which actually happens to give black some good counterplay. If you take, there is rook d8, and then we take on d3. That's the plan. That's the plan. So instead, queen d2 c5. So you might ask, why is actually what's wrong with f6? Like earlier on, I told you f6 is often played in this opening. It's nothing wrong with it. It's just it wasn't necessary because now white can avoid all these captures by playing b5. So these problems are now gone. And by playing b5, it's a question where the knight will maneuver. If you had taken, the knight could have gone to c5. Now it lacks a square. Now it lacks a square. So b5 would be an excellent move. Yeah, so I think that's my insight on this game. Let's see, what else? What else? What else? Let me know if you guys have anything else to be questioned. Let me know in the chat. Three draws and Hikaru winning will be prediction. What's yours? Uh, you know what? Somehow I have a feeling that Firuza's game is going to be decisive, either in Firuza's favor or Gukesh's favor. For some reason, I have a feeling it's not going to be a draw. Fabiano's position can be a draw, there's a chance. And Nijat's position can also be a draw. I mean, this can be a draw, could be a win for someone. But let's say this one is a draw, the other one is a draw. One of the players wins in Firuza versus Gukesh, and Nakamura wins. So yeah, two wins and two draws. That's my prediction. I guess we'll find out who wins, no? That's my prediction. Yeah, it's that's what we think. Hmm. Really curious. We'll yeah, sure. I'll end the stream soon. Really curious to see uh how this Rookesh 3 idea works out for Firouzja. If it does work out, I'll make a recap perhaps on it. And with that, I think I'll end the stream as well. Thank you very much for watching till the end, Isomaniac. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much for your support. And with that, I'll end the stream. Thank you very much, guys. I only planned to stream for an hour. It became nearly 2 hours.